I want to talk a little bit this morning about how we can work together to get things done, to grow our economy, protect our national defense, and make a real difference for the people of this country. And obviously, my focus is the people of Michigan, but we are a microcosm, so what's good in Michigan is good for the nation. I came to DC because I really believe in our ability to bridge political divides and make lasting progress. And yes, I do believe that, even in my 7th year as governor, in this tumultuous time in this country and around the globe, I still believe that, and I remain guided by the values that I learned growing up in a bipartisan household in the Midwest. Values of decency, respect, and kindness still shape the way that I approach this work, and it helps me make sure I stay focused on what matters so we can get things done. As a former state legislator, I worked with a Republican governor in Michigan to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. This covers hundreds of thousands of Michiganders. As a governor, I worked with a Republican-led legislature most of my time as governor. I've signed over 1,500 bipartisan bills and enacted 6 balanced budgets into law. Michiganders have an opportunity, and I believe an obligation, to lead by example and show the folks in DC how we get things done. Before we dig into some of my proposals today, I need to acknowledge what's going on with regard to tariffs. I know that that is front in mind for all of us. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These last few days have been really tough for Michigan. 20% of our economy is tied to the auto industry, which depends on a steady flow of goods from our largest and closest trading partners. We're home to the busiest international border crossing in North America. More than 10,000 vehicles carrying parts and materials cross the bridge between Detroit and Windsor every weekday. We're already seeing the impacts of tariffs. Auto companies are stockpiling parts and laying off workers. Suppliers are facing higher costs and delaying expansions. Dealerships are forced to raise prices by up to $15,000 amid slowing sales. And since every single auto job supports 3 others in the community, the impact is being felt by all of us, including small businesses across my state. Economists have pointed out that these tariffs represent the largest tax increase in nearly 60 years, costing families an average of $1,900. And if you're planning on having a cup of coffee, pumping gas, getting your groceries, buying clothes for your kids, or just simply meeting a friend for a drink, every one of those transactions is going to cost more because of tariffs. At the same time, we know that 401ks and IRAs are plunging, which is going to force older Americans to put off retirement. Home prices are going to go up and putting home ownership further out of reach for young people. So it really is a triple whammy: higher costs, fewer jobs, and more uncertainty. And it couldn't come at a worse time. People have been struggling after years of inflation and wages that aren't keeping up. We need government to stay focused on lowering the cost of living. Instead, what we're getting is the opposite: less money in our pockets, more doubts about future paychecks, critical government services that are getting defunded when they are needed most. I understand the motivation behind the tariffs, and I can tell you, here's where President Trump and I do agree. We do need to make more stuff in America: more cars and chips, more steel and ships. We do need fair trade. No state has lived through the consequences of offshoring and outsourcing more than Michigan. We know that when you lose a factory, it doesn't just mean losing those jobs. Losing people means losing resources. It means fewer police officers and underfunded schools. It means less housing being built and fewer roads fixed. It's a loss of purpose and identity. So while I share the president's goal of bringing good-paying middle-class manufacturing jobs back, it's got to be done right. Re-industrialization could have huge ripple effects, since manufacturing has the highest economic multiplier of any sector. Every dollar spent to make something triggers a chain reaction of material purchases, job growth, and supply chain, and more economic growth. So as I've said before, I'm not against tariffs outright, but it is a blunt tool. You can't just pull out the tariff hammer to swing at every problem without a clear, defined end goal. We cannot underestimate or underappreciate the time and capital it's going to take to actually bring jobs and supply chains back home. So there's not a shortcut here. Strategic reindustrialization must be a bipartisan project that spans multiple presidential administrations. So to get it done, we've got to work with our friends and compete against our adversaries. We need to be strategic about tariffs on the technology we actually want to make in America and on industries where we already have a sizable competitive advantage. Let's carve out autos and energy, both of which are critical to manufacturers and directly impact people's wallets. Finally, to the extent that tariffs are a strategic tool in an economic toolbox, let's use all of the new revenue to reinvest in American businesses and in our workers. Our history has proven that when we build, we succeed. And the opposite is true as well. When we don't build, we fall behind. When we don't build enough housing, we put the American dream out of reach. When we don't build enough schools, we lose our pipeline of talent. When we don't build enough roads or transit, we make it harder for people to get around and for businesses to move their goods. When we don't build enough factories, the engines that power our industrial economy sputter. The Trump administration says they get this, and I know that the Biden administration understood this too. It's why, despite the political division we see on the surface, there has been a real bipartisan effort below deck to bring manufacturing home. Here's an example from Michigan. In October of 2023, my administration invested $40 million to fix Wilder Road in a small town near Saginaw on the shores of Lake Huron. We got it done to help Vantage Plastics. This is a local manufacturer. We're helping them to build a new factory and create 93 good-paying jobs, local jobs. And this is a very purple part of Michigan. Donald Trump won this area 3 times and I carried it twice. A few weeks ago, Vice President Vance visited the finished factory. He spoke there and he said, and I quote, "Making things, building things, working with our hands is America's heritage." I agree with this. And I'm proud that the amount of money being spent to build factories in America has more than tripled over a decade. In Michigan, we've secured dozens of new facilities to build chips, batteries, cars, and energy. Just this year, major companies have announced huge investments in America to build data centers and factories and research facilities. So here's my pitch. Let's keep going. Let's make more ships and planes and semiconductor chips in America. Let's cut red tape and unleash extraordinary potential of American industry. Let's give more hardworking people a fair shot at a decent life. And let's usher in, as President Trump says, a golden age of American manufacturing. So first I want to talk about ships. I will talk about chips, but I'm talking about ships first. American shipbuilding output is a fraction of what it was in the 1950s. We build just 0.1%, all right, 1.1% of the world's ships, while China alone makes 53%. That's more than the rest of the world combined. Here's another shocking stat. China's largest state-owned ship company built more ships by tonnage last year than we have in the last 80 years, since the end of World War II. Shipbuilding is both a commercial and military challenge, but I'm going to focus on the military side. Last September, the United States Navy set an ambitious goal of building hundreds more ships and submarines over the next few decades. If we don't progress toward that goal, China's naval fleet could be 50% larger than ours. by 2030. It's not that far away. So I'm encouraged that both parties appear to see the problem. In December, Republicans and Democrats in Congress introduced the Ships for America Act, which would be the most significant bipartisan legislation to build ships in decades. Last month, during his joint address to Congress, President Trump announced that he will establish a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House under the National Security Council. A few days later, Brett Seidel, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for R&D, testified in front of the House Armed Services Committee. He outlined the challenges that we face, including reduced manufacturing capacity, supply disruptions, and most of all, workforce shortages. The last factor, workforce, is huge. We are short more than 100,000 workers, as nearly every major American shipyard has a hard time hiring and retaining the workforce they need. The shortage will get worse in a generation as we see a generation of experienced ship workers start to retire. If we don't act, our shipbuilding workforce will soon be smaller and less experienced than ever. In Michigan, we're the tip of the spear, or the tip of the torpedo in this case, in facing this challenge. Last year, the former Navy Secretary and I launched the Michigan Maritime Manufacturing, or the M3 initiative. It's a job training program built in partnership with Macomb County and Macomb County Community College to prepare thousands of Michiganders for careers in maritime welding and machining. A few weeks ago, I attended the first ever M3 graduation. It was full of inspiring stories. There was a mother and son who are graduating together. A young man who built his career on tech education he got in high school. Another who went from homelessness to a hopeful future where he signed a contract that day with a company at a good paying job. A clerk, a caregiver, a Coast Guard veteran. These are some of the people that graduated that day. We've already heard from businesses that have hired some of these recent graduates and are really impressed with their technical talent and the skills they brought on day one. A couple of weeks ago, I shared the success of this M3 initiative with Defense Secretary Hegseth. I told him it's good for workers, it's been good for Michigan, and it's good for America too, and national security. So my proposal is let's grow it. Let's expand initiatives like this. Let's do it statewide in Michigan, but replicate it across the country. The state of Michigan is ready to serve as a connector between the Navy and our network of 31 tribal and community colleges. We have the skills and the ability to make sure we're training people up. We can train thousands of Michiganders to do what we do best, which is GSD, get ship done. Right. Now let's talk about planes. We are the world leader in both commercial and military aviation. We're the home to industrial giants and manufacturers up and down the supply chain. We have a strong network of allies and around the globe in this space, including the UK's Midland Aerospace Alliance, who I met with 2 weeks ago. Our air superiority is second to none, but we are facing serious economic headwinds as our adversaries are catching up. Globally, we're short 17,000 jets and planes, and plane travel shows no sign of slowing down, with an all-time high of 5.2 billion passengers last year. Because of the shortage, however, airlines are having to use older planes for longer periods of time, for an average of 14 years. Now, there's a huge opportunity here to meet demand while making a profit and maximizing market share. China understands this. This is their plan, actually. They're rapidly expanding their aviation industry, both military and commercial, and they're gaining momentum fast. They're world leaders in drone manufacturing, and just the second country after the United States to have 2 stealth fighter jets, the J-20 and the J-35. China's largest passenger plane company, Commercial Aircraft Corporation, COMAC, now makes models that are competing with best-selling American-made planes on the market. They are on the verge of challenging Boeing and Airbus as a serious competitor. This should serve as a wake-up call to this country. COMAC, like so many Chinese companies, is funded directly by the Chinese government. This allows them to undercut others on the price while they're plowing billions into R&D. We see the same story playing out in the car market. Over the past decade, Chinese automakers, directly funded by the Chinese government, have muscled their way into countries around the world. They can sell at a loss because of the way that they're funded, and they're gobbling up market share, and they're driving out local competition. In Southeast Asia, Japanese giants like Honda and Toyota and Nissan are selling fewer cars. In Europe, Volkswagen was forced to close a factory for the first time in its century-long history because of Chinese competition. If we don't hit the throttle now, while we lead in the commercial and military aviation, China will pass us. That's something we cannot afford. We must protect our lead, and Michigan is ready and poised to do whatever it takes to win this. We can lean on our manufacturing experience and skilled workforce to boost domestic aviation manufacturing. We've got history here. There is precedent here. During World War II, Michigan automakers and suppliers took to the skies. In a matter of months, we shifted from producing cars and trucks for civilians to producing airplanes, tanks, guns, and shells for GIs. A Buick factory won a contract to build 500 engines a month, but ended up making 2,000 during that time. At Ford's legendary Willow Run Airport, 42,000 Michiganders rolled a B-24 bomber off the line every hour, 24/7, for a grand total of 8,865. And a generation of Rosie the Riveters said, "We can do it," and they worked in the factories. We were able to get it done because the federal government set a clear strategy, made it easier to move fast by slashing red tape, and simplified procurement. When you already know how to make something like a car, it's a lot easier to shift your factory to make something else. Domestic manufacturers, whether they're multinational corporations or small and mid-sized companies further up the supply chain, stand ready and capable to do this. If we collaborate at the state and federal level, we can make targeted investments to retool our factories, to make planes, plane parts, and drones. We have manufacturing and innovation ecosystem that is uniquely suited for modern defense and aerospace needs. Another contributing factor to slowing aviation industry, just like with shipbuilding, is a shrinking workforce. Nearly a quarter of American aviation technicians have fewer than 5 years of experience, as a huge wave of retirements is about to hit the market. Experts estimate that by 2028, we'll be short 37,000 aviation techs. At the state level, I can tell you Michigan's doing our part. We've made historic bipartisan investments in places like the Selfridge National Air Guard Base, a key defense hub and economic anchor that supports thousands of jobs and hundreds of military families in Macomb County. I established a new statewide Office of Defense and Aerospace Innovation, and in the heart of Detroit, we set up the Transportation Innovation Zone, where aviation and aerospace startups can easily test new technologies in public airspace. But we can't do this alone. We need help from Washington. We need a coordinated national strategy and bipartisan investment to grow America's aviation industry and workforce. Otherwise, we know that China is going to eat our lunch. If we're proactive, we can create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs and protect our national security and lower costs for travelers around the world and here at home. So let's make it easier for aviation and aerospace to thrive in America. Let's put a ruthless emphasis on outcomes over process, and let's build and innovate and own the skies. I started speaking about big manufacturing projects. Now I want to focus on the smallest. I want to talk about semiconductor chips. Chips are the brains behind so much of what makes our lives work. They're in our phones, they're in our cars, they're in our appliances. They're critical for AI technology as well. Decades ago, we invented chips, and we used to make them too. But then we just ceded ground to other nations, especially China. For a long time, we made zero logic and DRAM chips. These are two of the most advanced types that we all rely on. Thankfully, Republicans, Democrats, and industry leaders came together to do something about it. During President Trump's first term, we started a serious national conversation about semiconductor manufacturing. A few years later, during the Biden years, Congress passed bipartisan legislation to bring chip manufacturing back home. I'm grateful to so many of our congressional delegation who fought hard to get it across the finish line. Now, because we work together, we are seeing real progress. An example from Michigan is Hemlock Semiconductor, who expanded in their hometown near Saginaw with a new facility that's going to create more than 1,000 jobs. Hemlock is one of the largest producers of hyper-pure polysilicon. You're never more than a few feet away from Michigan-made polysilicon because it's in nearly every single electronic device in the world. Nationally, we're now on track to make 20% of the world's logic chips and 10% of the DRAM chips, up from zero. We're building 17 chip fab facilities, including one from each of the world's 5 best and biggest manufacturers. Altogether, they've committed to investing more than $600 billion in America. And I know that there are still more in the pipeline. These chip fabs offer thousands of jobs during construction and thousands more permanent, long-term local jobs once they are completed. Both Democrats and Republicans agree that we must stay on the bleeding edge of technology. The president even mentioned chips during his speech to Congress and set up a new United States Investment Accelerator to oversee semiconductor projects. We have the momentum right now, but we cannot risk stepping back or faltering. We need to continue strong bipartisan efforts at the state and national level to make more chips. The bottom line is that when America innovates and when America builds, America wins. We all want manufacturing to be stronger than ever. Nobody wants that more than Michiganders. We pride ourselves on the things we make and grow. As I've laid out, we need a consistent national strategy, united around a new economic consensus that a lot of Democrats and Republicans now share. Let's make stuff in America. If that's what we believe, then we should be able to celebrate good policy no matter where it comes from, and also criticize bad policy wherever it comes from. Now, there's a lot more common ground here than we think. While partisanship seems to have infected every aspect of our lives, and it's exhausting. It's driven by opportunistic politicians and cynical media figures and addictive algorithms. But our people are not as divided as our politics. I really believe that. People from every walk of life call Michigan home. We are a microcosm, and that's why every presidential election, people look to see what's going on in Michigan. We don't always agree, that's for sure. But we move forward together, and that is a source of strength. It's why I came here to DC. Building on an industrial economy is no small task. It's thousands of small tasks. And each of us, government, industry entrepreneurs, workers, we're all a part of the same pit crew. I'm from Michigan, so yes, I'm gonna torture another auto analogy. We're all a part of the same pit crew. If we do our jobs, we can get America back on the track, better and faster than ever. Don't just take my word for it. Talk to someone like Roger Penske. He's a successful businessman who's built a $43 billion company, 74,000 employees, and that company happens to be headquartered in Michigan. In addition to his thriving commercial trucking business, Penske runs the world's leading motorsports enterprise. He knows what it takes to run a good pit crew and build a business that is successful. At the Detroit Grand Prix, the Penske crew runs a full systems check, replaces 4 tires, and pumps 20 gallons of fuel in 6.2 seconds to get their car moving toward the checkered flag as quickly as possible. They work together. They use a data-driven strategy. They source the best products they can to win. That's what we should be doing as well. I know there's been a lot of talk recently about government efficiency, but the proposed solutions have been solely focused on firing people from the crew or stripping away critical parts. That's no way to win a race. If we really want to win and to keep winning, we need to reinvest in our crew and build better parts. In our darkest hours, that's exactly what we did. When this country entered World War II, we didn't have the industrial capacity to fight a two-front war in Europe and in the Pacific, let alone win it. So we built the arsenal of democracy. It was the most successful collaboration between government and industry and workers in our history. When the Allies won the war, 500,000 Michiganders flooded into downtown Detroit to celebrate, realizing the part they all played in saving the world. Now, fast forward to just a few years ago. As we face a deadly global pandemic, the President launched Operation Warp Speed. We moved faster than anyone thought was possible to create, test, make, and ship billions of shots of a life-saving vaccine. I still remember the pride I felt when I watched the Pfizer vaccine get packed into trucks and roll out of Portage, Michigan. People stood outside on the road, even though it was bitter cold, waving the stars and stripes, proud of what we had done. It was an extraordinary achievement that showed us what's possible when we work together to streamline government and allow America to do what it does best, innovate and build. We got a lot going for us, but our future is uncertain. We have good cards, but good cards alone don't mean jack if you don't play them right. This year and in the years to come, no matter who is in the White House, we need to be betting on American workers. We need to bring chip manufacturers back home. So let's dominate the seas and the skies and the roads. And let's innovate and let's build together. I really appreciate you joining me this morning, and I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're about to have next. Thank you so much.